Virtus Aquitus by Bones Boy 15, Chapter 21, Dogs of War. Tell me I imagined that. That wasn't what I thought it was it? Kurma asked as he stared at the door to his team's room. The dance had ended on a high note for everyone, even though Naruto had to suffer through his godfather's antics. Poor bastard. Kurma even received a sweet and quick peek from his date, which would not be told to his teammates after he walked back to her dorm. The morning after started normally. Kurma saw various orbs in bedrooms where they shouldn't be, felt their unease or annoyance or whatever emotions was going through their head. Basically, what happened after most teens attended dances. However, it was after Naruto had finished his morning rituals that they heard it. Kurma at first played it off as a trick of the ears, but then it came again, twice in the span of a minute. Was that not a good sign? Well, maybe someone's watching the video, Sasuke said uncertainly. Rooms were supposed to be soundproof, and they only weren't if a door or window was open. Sasuke turned to hear the near window and grimaced. It was open to a crack. Son of a... The raven-haired teen rose from his bed to shut the window. I'll go check it out if you want, Naruto said to the faunus. Please do. If it is what I think it is. Kurama growled loudly in the back of his throat while his tail swished. His knuckles whitened as his grip around his ever-present staff tightened. Haku, keep an eye on him, Naruto told his teammate before he stepped out and closed the door behind him. Haku arched about the order and looked at Kurama. Care to explain? He asked. The androgynous boy was surprised when Kurama growled at him. Give me cheek, Yuki, and I'll make sure that every female on campus slaps yours. Kurama waited until Haku nodded before he crossed his arms. In Khan, there's a family of canine-themed humans who train their pets for battle. One such owner decided to have a fox hunt. Oh my, Haku's thoughts ran wild. Don't believe that load for a second, Sasuke said quickly before Haku got the wrong idea. He smirked at Kurama. Sir Pity Party here was just chased up a tree before he recovered from his instincts when he was a kid. The whole thing was hilarious, really. A snack landed in the back of his pants, and the dog it was meant for chased him. Screw you, Uchiha, like you don't know what it's like to be controlled by pure unadulterated fear and adrenaline. At least I never crapped my pants when I was 7. Kurama roared and leaped at Sasuke, his hands wrapped around the raven-haired teen's neck with the intent to choke him unconscious. Or so Haku hoped. Haku stood off to the side and watched as the two partners rolled across the floor of the room, each choking each other. It was sadly a far too common thing, Haku sighed. He could have just said he's afraid of dogs. Naruto didn't know what he expected when he was welcomed into Team Ruby's room, but seeing Bell perched on what had to be the most precarious bunk bed he'd ever seen on his life was not one of them, nor did he expect to see the graver little mammal standing at the bottom of the punks, barking up at Blake. 2 triangular ears stood alert on the dog's head, and when he stepped in, 2 green eyes turned towards him, and another bark was given before the source of Kurama's fear leapt at him. The whiskered blonde caught the corgi in the air and held him. A very lucky him who still had some parts most pet owners removed away as the pink tongue licked the air. I've already had a shower today, thanks. Naruto denied the small dog with an amused smile. His eyes drifted over to his girlfriend and then her younger sister. I take it this is why? Yep, Ruby chirped as she plucked the corgi from Naruto's hands. And he's going to stay with us forever. And, Ruby and Yang's father sent that mangy mutt in the mail. Weiss quickly recovered as she looked away from Weiss's face. Naruto grinned and pointed at her. Keep an eye on those cracks in the Weiss girls. Tell me if they get bigger, he said. Yang snickered at the mediocre pun and stepped over to her abused side, her arm slipping around his waist while his instinctively fell over to her shoulders. Not bad, Naruto, but you got to up your game a bit with our precious witwy princess, Yang said with a perfect imitation of Weiss's baby talk. I hate you both, Weiss huffed, her cheeks red. We bask in your hatred, the couple declared proudly. Weiss barked eagerly and scrambled from Ruby's hand to start sniffing the newcomer. Naruto didn't mind and even parted from Yang to kneel down and start petting the corgi on the head. So your dad sent him, huh? Weird how we were just talking about him last night, Naruto said with a look aimed at Ruby. Wow, you're right. That's a weird coincidence, Ruby nodded. Naruto stared at her dryly and shook his head while Swai licked his hand. He didn't believe in coincidences, but then again, he was trained by possibly the best in the business of intelligence gathering. Coincidences in that line of work usually never turned out well, and that belief was handed down from master to student. Well, guess you can cross Y off your list, Ruby said, which earned her another look from Naruto, as well as a few confused ones from her teammates. Ruby blinked. What? You're so horribly naive that it's adorable, Naruto sighed as he got back to his feet. What list? Yang asked curiously. A list of, Ruby suddenly found herself speechless as a cold chill ran up her spine. Her eyes were locked with Naruto's for only a second before flashes of horrible events went through her mind. Cookies being drained of sugar, the world's supply of ice cream running out, and all candy being outlawed. Ruby's skin turned paler if possible. She began to tremble where she stood before her knees gave out. I think she's coming down from a sugar high, Naruto said with a faint look of concern on his face. He was not going to let Yang tease him over getting her father, uncle, and dog's approval, not when she was already so hell-bent on learning the secret he told Blake the other night. Speaking of Blake, Naruto shifted his gaze to Stefanus. Why are you hiding up there, Belle? Blake turned her attention towards him. I'm not hiding, she robotically denied. Yeah, sure, and I'm no longer addicted to ramen. Naruto scoffed and crossed his arms over his chest. That'll be the day, Y said with a snort. She knelt down and began to coo at the pet's Y and pet's Y while the others were distracted. To be precise, the day and Uzumaki denies ramen is the day that Remnant ends, so it has been prophesied, so it shall be. Naruto stared while he kept his gaze locked with Blake. I actually believe that, the Faunus dryly returned. At least you're honest there. What is that supposed to mean? What do you think I mean? Naruto asked. A smirk spread across his face, and Blake paused for a few seconds before her face turned red. She ducked down out of sight. Not funny, Naruto. How do you think I feel? Yang looked between the two and pouted. Hey, if you guys are going to flirt, the least you could do is let me in on it, she complained. Blake turned a darker shade of red while Naruto gave her an apologetic look. Sorry, hun, he said. Yang glanced at him and smirked. Okay, I like that one, he said, her arms slowly wrapped around his waist. Sounds mature, very sexy. Yeah, I can do mature. Naruto's voice became a bit huskier, and his hands settled on her hips. They leaned closer to each other, and Swai, Yang's breaking dad's dating rule. Naruto was suddenly tackled into the hallway by a canine missile. Yang glared at Ruby for getting Swai to attack her boyfriend right when they were about to make out, and Ruby smirked proudly back at her. No kissing boys in the house. We're not at home, and Dad's not even here. Swai doesn't care. He's trained too well, Ruby pointed out victoriously. He's a good dog. Weiss agreed, a smirk on her face as she watched Swai assault Naruto's face with vicious licks. God, get it, gross, he slipped me tongue. Naruto audibly gagged while Yang and Ruby argued over where their house rules needed to be applied. Blake grimaced in Naruto's defense while Weiss sided with Ruby. What was really horrible about the situation was that none of the four girls moved to save the Whisker team from Swai's affection, as they all got sucked into defining where Yang's PDA was allowed. By the time they did, they found Swai hogtied by some sort of wire and panting happily without a care in the world while a sticky note was tapped to his forehead. Yang plucked the note from Swai's head and furrowed her brow as she read it. Dear girls, decided to go join my team. Sorry about Swai, but he likes me a lot. See you around. Love you, honey. Naruto. Aw, such a sweetie. Is that all it says? Weiss asked as she and Ruby worked on the not keeping Swai's legs bound. The Harris's brow furrowed in frustration when she found another knot beneath the first. What the heck? How did he do this while we weren't looking? Oh, there is more. Yang mused as she flipped the note over. P.S. I do a lot of things when you're not looking. Sneeze. How did he know I was going to? P.P.S. I am a ninja. Fear my ninjitude. Yang frowned. Okay, I don't get it. You had to be there. Blake smirked in amusement. Three men occupied the clock tower of Beacon, each a good distance from the other, and all seemingly at peace, seemingly like the world they lived in. They represented their kingdoms well. Atlas, iron facade of strength, a militaristic order presented in the general's posture and gaze. Phil's cheerful mask of professionalism, while calculating possible outcomes, could be seen in Professor Osmond's same smile as he poured himself a fresh cup of tea. And to top it off, Jiraiya displayed Vecchio's calming guise, well as he feigned disinterest in the situation and simultaneously drawing attention to himself while he went through his notes. Really, all they needed was someone from Mistral trying to find their tails in an effort to win, and they'd be a full set in one room. So, hearing Miss Rose's testimony, what do you two think? Ospen broke the silence before he lifted his teeth to sip from it. Honestly, that girl is going to wind up marrying the first guy she generally falls in love with, and knowing the universal balance of such a thing, the guy is going to be all around nice dude, if a bit quiet. My money's on a wannabe author, Jiraiya said with a smile. A super pervert he was, but he was also a hardcore romantic. To preserve such innocence, he decided that Rosie Rube was going to be a fantasy cameo, someone Ruth Nail would dream about, but not touch. It was still going to be steamy as fuck, but not an actual fling. The Moe fans would absolutely adore it though. Ospen choked on his drink, and Ironwood clapped his hand over his eyes. Jiraiya frowned at their reactions. Everyone presumed so little of him once they found out he was a proud pervert. Honestly, the most they could do is be grateful that he acknowledged it. Jiraiya was certain that he would be worse if he tried to deny his debauchery. Speaking of debauchery, he had to set up some sort of camera system in his godson's room. There was no way the boy wasn't playing footsie. He wasn't playing footsie with his bombshell of a girlfriend behind closed doors. Yes, he knew that Naruto proclaimed to be off limits, and Jiraiya respected such a request. But the boy had to know that he himself was going to be that he was going to be inspiration for the series, right? Then again, he is Minato's son. The damn fool of an apprentice didn't know or recognize that the girl was smitten with him until she walked up, grabbed him by the balls in public square of Con, and told everyone flat out, "This is mine. This is where my babies will come from." Coincidentally, Kushina Uzumaki was a very brash and blunt woman, and very persuasive when she was angry or emotional about something. That was to say, Minato didn't have a temper. He was far more tactical than his beloved wife. Jiraiya shivered. He could still remember the day that he'd foolishly gone against Minato's request of not spying on Kushina. Minato wasn't pleased and got his revenge. Oh boy, did he get his revenge. Thinking about it made Jiraiya downright horrified. Let's just say Naruto's creative use of household items and slash store food and his pranks did not come from his mother's side of the family. With his thoughts returning to his godson, Jiraiya began to stroke his chin. The boy's claim of having prior experience with the opposite sex was something Jiraiya always believed to be true. This was his godson he was talking about here, but the significant lack of evidence was disconcerting to the super pervert. There was also the lack of any signs of sexual repression, but Jiraiya attributed that to Naruto's warrior spirit being far stronger than his lust. However, like a coiled spring, some things could not be contained forever. Eventually, something will give way, but at this rate, that could take years. The boy's repressed needs and desires will build and build until finally he can't stand no more. He'll ravish the first beauty in sight, and I will no must be there to capture it for the good of my legacy. But how can I anticipate such a natural reaction? Well, I could have him write another chapter for me, or edit one. Ooh, better idea. I could take him to a strip. Lord Jiraiya, Osman's disapproving tone snapped. Jiraiya from his thoughts on how he was going to influence his godson more than he already had. What? Jiraiya asked in mild annoyance. Do not speculate about my students in such a manner. Osmond scowled at the man. He was so grateful that Glinda was not present. The last thing he needed was to have another incident between Jiraiya and Glinda. You asked what I thought, Ozzy. Jiraiya shrugged and tucked his notebook away. He folded his arms over his chest and smirked at the headband. I gave you an answer. Quite. Ospen's nostrils flared briefly before he looked at the general. At Lilisian. General. The girl wasn't lying. Ironwood simply replied. His eyes narrowed. And we certainly aren't getting closer to finding out who's behind the unity between the Fourth War and the White Fang, supplying them with Atlas stolen and replicated technology. James, Osmond warned his friend, what we need is some unnatural luck that turns a normal situation into a disaster. Jiraiya said. He tapped his chin and a small grin spread across his face. You know, that girl sort of reminds me of someone I know who tends to have that sort of luck. I think I have an idea that could help you find what you're looking for. Ospen and the general shared a wary look before they turned back to the older man. If you have any information that could help us, Ironwood began. Oh, cool your jets, Jimmy. I've got a lead I want to follow, but I think I'll need some help on the way. Jiraiya gave a pointed look to Ospen. Well, I'm sure their mother hen wouldn't mind a day to spend with his fiancée, Ospen said naturally. All right then, I'll go get a bulkhead ready, maybe a radio. Jiraiya hummed in thought before he burst into laughter and walked out of the office. Yeah, right, me, with a radio. The door slid shut behind him, and Ironwood turned to his friend and fellow headmaster. Have I ever told you how much I despise that man? The Adlesian asked. The Beacon headmaster sighed. Many, many times. Let me say it once more. I utterly and completely loathe that man, Ironwood sighed. But damn if he isn't good at what he does. Osmond arched her brow. Are you talking about his information gathering skills or his writing skills? Either. Well, at least we're agreed on that. Osmond sighed a beat past. Ironwood shifted uncomfortably and looked to the side. Are you caught up on the series yet? The question made the Beaconhead Master hesitate. Yes. He's going to start the next one soon. Indeed. Ironwood drummed his fingers and then sighed as he looked at the slightly perturbed man seated across from him. We're not horrible people, are we, Osmond? I certainly hope not. I mean, he's technically that boy's godfather, and he's got more sway than we do, right? Of course. And the identities are protected, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Yes, they are. Usually. There was another moment of silence before Osmond broke it. You don't think he'll... No, I mean, it's his godson. Right, of course. Just a moment of brief concern. Understandable. Still, Naruto shifted uncomfortably as he and his team sat waiting patiently for their bullhead to take off. Osma had cut them all off on their way to the meeting room, saying that they had been handpicked by the supervisor for a specific mission that he didn't give them any detail about. Now, Naruto wasn't afraid of surprises. Hell, he wasn't really afraid of anything, really. This is, if you didn't count his phobia of ghosts, years of growing up alone in a small and old apartment, as well as a lack of parental love and / protection from such terrors, had done well to turn what was a childish fear into a very paralyzing phobia. Was it embarrassing? Yes. Did Naruto really care? No. He was brown pants required afraid of ghosts, and while he had accepted it, it still didn't change the fact that he couldn't punch a ghost square in the face. But if you were going to be a huntsman or huntress, the one thing you wanted more than anything else before a mission started was information about a mission. Needless to say, having any information was rattling Naruto's nerves a tad. It didn't help that he wasn't the only one on edge. I can't believe they have a mongrel. Kurama grumbled into a scowl. His lips was curled up into a snarl, and he glared daggers at Naruto, his sunglasses flashing red every other few seconds, his nose crinkling up in disgust. You smell absolutely disgusting. Thank you, Naruto replied snidely. Please don't fight, Haku tiredly requested from where he sat on Kurama's left, while Sasuke and Naruto sat opposite them. It had taken him a good few minutes to pry the fondest teammate off of the lightning user when the latter started to turn blue. Whatever, wasn't listening to. Oh, good boys. You all got here on time without killing each other. I knew you'd start to grow up sooner or later. Naruto froze, now as pale as ruby skin, as when he heard the voice of not an old pervert, but of an experienced warrior, robotically. He turned to see the grinning face of his godfather standing outside the bullhead. A shiver went down Naruto's spine, and he swallowed. Jiraiya's presence didn't bode well for him, and it wasn't because he knew the man would pump him for information on Emerald and Yang. Old Toad, Sasuke and Kurama greeted coolly. Fanboy, Kit. Jiraiya nodded at them and smirked when they glared at him. He plopped down in the seat next to Haku, his arms draped over the back of Haku's seat, and he grinned. How you doing, beautiful? Naruto's worry left him, and he joined his friends in grinning, while his partner sighed in dismay. If there was one thing he loved about having a shameless lecher for a godfather, it was his inability to pass up a chance to flirt, something that really put a knot in Sun's tail when Jiraiya turned his attention to Blake. Considering Yang was off limits, Blake, however, was crossed between being flattered and disgusted, and the latter increased once Naruto informed Jiraiya of her fondness for his work. Why was she not flattered? Well, Jiraiya asked if she wanted to help him work on the next one personally, alone, in his hotel room. He got a smack on the face for his effort. I'm a boy, Haku corrected the old man before he made any further advances. Jiraiya squinted and leaned uncomfortably close to Haku's face, disregarding the meaning of the words personal space and making the androgynous boy shift in his seat. Naruto, Sasuke, and Kurama got to watch Haku squirm for a solid 3 minutes before he was given some relief when Jiraiya moved away. Huh, I'll be damned. So you are. Jiraiya mused lightly as he moved one seat away from the girly boy. Sorry about that. Usually I can spot a femboy. You're an old fart pervy sage. Naruto snorted and smirked as he slumped down in his seat. Eyes must be going bad. Shut up, pipsqueak. Jiraiya glared at him. To be fair, Sasuke couldn't tell either, Kurama added nonchalantly. Sasuke glared at the smirking fondness. Shut it, fox. Payback's a bitch, Uchiha. Alright, settle down, brats. Jiraiya waved at the two partners and kept them in their seats. He leaned back and knocked on the metal. Hey, Fly Guy, you ready to go or what? Ready and waiting, Lord Jiraiya, the pilot said in return. Then what are we waiting for? Let's get going already. Coordinates, sir. Ah, right. The sage chuckled sheepishly and pulled out his scroll. The engines of the boat had started up, and the four students remained quiet as Jiraiya listed off the coordinates of their destination. Naruto furrowed his brow when Jiraiya finished. This was one of those times he wished he paid a tad bit more attention in Khan Academy. He had absolutely no idea where they were going. Jiraiya turned back to the boys and smirked. So, it's going to be a while before we get there, the old man began. He put his scroll away and pulled out his notepad, grinning at the four teens. Who wants to pass the time by telling me when my beloved godson popped his girlfriend's cherry? Any concern of Naruto's lack of knowledge on the mission flew out the window as outrage filled him like a burning liquid. I've had a girlfriend before, Yang, damn it. It's true. Kurama nodded. He smirked and sat forward. In fact, she's some unknown girl who snuck into Haven. Oh, Sasuke, tell me more, Kurama. Jiraiya giggled out. Sasuke smirked and Haku chuckled lightly while Naruto groaned into his hand. He was right. Jiraiya was going to use him for inspiration. Well, apparently, it all began after you brought him back to finish his schooling. You sly little bastard. Give me details. Skin, hair, eyes, breast, ass. Leave nothing out. Naruto covered his face in shame as his godfather and teammates began to have an excited conversation about his ex-girlfriend right in front of him. Haku moved to sit on his other side and gave him a comforting pat on the shoulder, as well as being between the two deviants, while Sasuke pulled his scroll out and began to play a game he'd installed on it. The whiskered blonde only hoped that this mission was as exciting as most of his adventures with Jiraiya were. Then he'd be able to forget this moment, and hopefully his team did too. Okay, so before this chapter ends, pretty much an intro title was made by Engineers Forever and by Veritas Aquitas. And pretty much the song that they use for their intro is Whiskers in the Dark by Skillet. So if you want to hear the song while I read along, it's up to you. And during the piano intro, a scenic shot of Beacon is taken that becomes negative upon zooming. The negative coloring corrects itself when the camera flies past Naruto, flipping sharply to zoom in on his hands, clasping tightly around his parents' wedding bands during the song's whispering opening. A hard guitar riff starts as Naruto's eyes snap open. It continues flashing by profile shots of Kurama, Haku, and Sasuke before the chorus begins. During the chorus, Naruto grins while he and Kurama spar and playing hand to hand. He gets a hip toss, then Haku offers a hand down to help him up, while Sasuke tags him and jumps into the square with the smirking fondness. His landing dissolves into a kick onto a Beowulf's head, with Haku rushing in from behind to deliver a blow to the stomach. The Beowulf goes flying and changes with another dissolve into Naruto, who slams into a wall and forces himself back to his feet as the chorus comes to a close. An instrument with a wailing guitar begins and images of scenes flash by, including Naruto and Yang's first meeting, /13 while they grinned at one another, Blake casually brushing past Naruto, Kurama, and Sasuke, Weiss and Kurama butting heads while Naruto and Ruby tried to pull them away, Haku putting a hand on John's shoulder while Nora hangs from Sasuke's, Pyrrha and Ren smiling in the background. The screen went black and the instrument faded before the chorus repeated. As the chorus repeats, the four boys are standing shoulder to shoulder while they face off against shadowy figures covered in red mushroom clouds. Split screen faces off were shown next. Sasuke's eyes sparkled with black lightning arching over his body while he glared at a figure that opened white and red eyes with commas in them. Kurama's sunglasses flashed red, and he tightened his grip on his staff as a toothy grin was sent to him. Haku's eyes narrowed firmly as he lifted a white mask up towards his face as the beautiful woman's face turned into a frown. Naruto grinned in challenge and his eyes turned gold before the camera goes back to the towering figures. The one across from Naruto gaining purple and rippled eyes. Aura burned around the boys as they leapt at the shadows, with Naruto in the lead away while the song finished on a hard guitar solo. End of chapter 21.